Hey, welcome to Papercraftpanda. My name is Misty, and through my website and blog, I teach people how to make their own handmade books. So using those same techniques, we can create really cute handmade gifts like this one. And today I want to show you how to make it. It's a coupon book for couples, and it's created using a couple of different techniques, but primarily we are using a Japanese stamp binding technique. So the stamp binding technique is great for beginners. It's an awesome way to sort of get yourself into the craft, and we're going to use one of the patterns. This one is called the tortoise shell pattern because it kind of looks like little hearts. And I thought that went with the motif. So anyways, this book, it's actually really easy to make. It'll take you a couple hours and you can make it for any occasion, for anyone. And I definitely encourage you to give it a try. So if you want to learn how, go ahead and watch the tutorial. If you like what you see, subscribe to the channel or just hit the like button so Google knows it's worth sending out to other people, and enjoy. Thanks.
Welcome back to Papercraftpanda. Today I want to show you how to make an adorable coupon book for couples. I mean, look at this thing. Is this not adorable? I know, I agree. So to make this, you're going to need a few materials. I always recommend pause it here, write this stuff down, cut everything to size, and then bring it back before you start the tutorial. Here's just a quick top down of the materials that you're going to need for this, and then let's go over some of the tools. So here's a quick image of the tools that you're going to need, but I also want to walk you through some of these. You're going to want to have a ruler. 12 to 18 inches is fine, and then I'm using a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and 1/8 inch steel spacers. I've also got my trusty scissors, my Olfa knife, retractable, a heavy duty awl, a light duty awl, and an awesome Japanese screw punch so that we can make the holes for our Japanese stab binding. Now, if you don't have one of these, it's okay. You can use a crocodile or a hole punch. Mine comes with these extra bits, different sizes, 2mm, 3mm, etc. A pair of pliers, just in case you need to get your needle through the binding and it's difficult. I also use this corner jig. It helps me measure and mark my corners. These 2 different paste brushes, a small and a large. Bone folder, of course. This awesome pair of binder clips, 3/4 inch, my binding needle, a pencil, of course, and then optional, these clamps if you don't have binder clips, and I'm using a rubber brayer to help press the board. Okay, so speaking of the board, we're going to take this larger piece and cut it down into 3 separate pieces. The first is the longest, it's for the back cover, and the front cover has 2 pieces, a medium and a tiny. Now this cover paper, we're going to cut it into a long strip. There we go. And this long strip will help cover the top cover. How many times can I say the word cover? Now, for the back cover and the spine, I chose this red Japanese book cloth, and I picked it because it's got this beautiful corduroy look to it and kind of like a velvety feel. I thought it added to the romance. So now this is the inside of each of the covers. These are the end papers. I'll go ahead and set those aside. And then now we're going to actually create the front cover. To do this, we had to take the red Japanese book cloth and cut that long piece down into 2. This little one here is one of the 2 pieces, and it's going to be the spine and the left edge of our top cover. Now I have to glue the cover paper to this piece of book cloth so that it makes one continuous cover for me to glue the boards to. So to do that, I taped it down, applied some glue, and now we're going to just press it. Well, that presses, I'm going to take the other piece of red book cloth and I'm just going to make a 1/2 inch mark on each of these edges. Those are the edges that I'm going to want to turn in, like the flaps, and so my book board fits nicely right here in the middle. Now I'll go ahead and just apply some glue to the back of the book board. I'm using a high quality Davey book board. It's 8 point, I believe, so it's a little thicker than most, but you can use anything from 0.6 to 0.8 if you're using book board. Now, once I get the glue nice and spread here, I'm going to go ahead and just press it down onto the book cloth, and I'm using a rubber brayer. Let me just get the glue off. Okay. That rubber brayer helps me press the air bubbles out without running the bone folder along the material, which sometimes the bone folder, especially with really, really delicate material like Japanese book cloth, it can catch or pull little fibers out, and I didn't want to do that. Now I'm just marking my corners here, and I'm going to cut them with a scissor. And this whole process is very similar to making a case. And I cover this in my case binding tutorial part 2. So if you want to understand how to make those corners, just check out the link that I'm going to put in the description box below, and you can go see what the technical details of those look like. Now, back to what we're doing. So the top cover piece has dried. I'm applying the board now, the medium piece first. Notice that I applied the medium piece so that it just barely overlaps the 2 pieces that we originally glued together. That's on purpose just to add structural stability. Now I'm pressing the air bubbles out and cutting away some excess here. And then it's time to add our tiny piece. This tiny piece is the hinge, and we want 1/8 of an inch between the hinge and the main part of the book. So I set little piece down with an 1/8 inch spacer between them, and I just outlined it. Now I'm applying some glue to the back. I'm smoothing it with my fingers so I don't get too much on there. And then I'm going to replace the 1/8 inch spacer as a guide and press that little piece down. With it in place, I'm just using the rubber brayer, and boom. Now I'm going to use the rounded edge of the bone folder to gently define the crease. Book cloth is pretty good stuff to work with, but you still want to be careful with your bone folder, so always use the rounded edge if you can at all help it. Now back to what we're doing. Again, marking corners, cutting away some excess, and then we're just going to clip them off and move into the next phase where we're actually going to turn in the top and bottom edges first, and then we'll turn in the left and right. So I'm just applying some glue here, making sure there's nothing that's spilled out, and then I'm going to fold it over just like that. Using a bone folder, I'm going to just simply press to get any excess glue out and air, and then turn it over and repeat this process with the other side. So again, if making this case is something you want to learn how to do, my case binding tutorial part 2 will show you every single one of these steps in greater detail. So now after we turn this edge in, I'm going to do the left and right. So let's just press the air out here. I got too much glue on this one. There's so much coming out. All right, so on the left and right edges, we're going to go ahead and form our corners. I'm doing this quickly, but you can see I press the little tabs in and then I fold it over. Now I've got a better view of that coming up, so wait for it. We're back to the front cover now, just repeating the same process as we did previously with the back cover, except this time it's a little different, right? Because we've got paper on the top and we've got book cloth. The paper is a little more delicate, I suppose. Once paper gets wet, the fibers begin to expand, so you have to work quickly. And then of course you want to be careful not to use too much glue, otherwise it'll get soggy and rip. So just take your time if you're using decorative cardstock. I definitely took my time here, but it's sped up for your benefit. Now let's talk about those corners one more time. I'm going to do this one really quickly from this kind of top-down view. Just fold those little edges in, and then I'm going to flip it over and press it just the way we did with the other edges. Get all that excess air out and a little bit of glue. You can see why it's good to have a towel nearby just to keep your fingers clean. Okay, so the book cloth is so much more fun to work with because it's very flexible. So I'm going to go ahead and just repeat the same process, flip this over and glue it down. But then after I get the air pressed, I want to turn it over and just work that hinge a little bit more. So I definitely encourage you to do this. Kind of flip it up, move it around, make sure it's got some mobility. And then we're ready to press it. So after about 15 to 20 minutes, take them back out. It's time to put our end papers on. These pieces are already pre-cut, so I'm just going to flip it over, apply glue to the back. Then once we get it all nice and covered, it was so sad to cover up these hearts, but the other side just worked better. Okay, so we're going to lay this down. Now, before I really press the end paper in, I'm actually just gently tapping it so that I can use my bone folder to smooth a bit and then push that end paper down into the hinge. So the little space, the 1/8 of an inch, the paper is going to slide down in there better when it's wet. And so I'm using my bone folder to work it into place. I'm actually going really slow. I encourage you to go pretty slow too, so you don't accidentally rip the end paper on the inside. Now, I don't want to waste your time making you watch me do another one, so I just finished them both, but I wanted to show you, this is what they look like close up. The solid red is the back cover and the two-tone is the top cover. Now let's go ahead and prepare our coupons. I purchased these online at Etsy, downloaded them and printed them out. Then I cut them all out to the specifications listed on the materials list. And then it's time to go ahead and measure and mark our sewing stations. So instead of just having you watch me measure and mark this, I thought I would include this illustration that shows you exactly where these need to go. There are 2 separate illustrations here. The first one shows you where the first row should go, and that's 4 different sewing stations. And then the second row is the top 2 sewing stations. And so if you'd like to, go ahead and pause here, write down these measurements, go ahead and mark up your coupons, and then come back and resume the video. Okay, let's go ahead and get the Japanese screw punch ready. I'm using a 2mm bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just slide it in the screw punch, tighten it down, and then I'm going to start on the hole. Now I'm using a relatively thick cardstock. It's about 140-pound cardstock, I believe. And so I'm lifting up 4 or 5 sheets as I move the screw punch through this hole, just to make sure that I don't accidentally over widen the hole. If you don't have a Japanese screw punch, that's totally fine. Use whatever you have at home to make these holes. A hole punch, a Dremel station works great. If you have a drill press, how awesome is that? That would work too. But go ahead and create all of the holes as they're marked. And once you're done, it's time for us to sort of put this book together and start to give ourselves an idea of what the final product is going to look like. I have the back cover is face down, then I've got the coupon books, and this top one is a template. So I'm not going to include that top one in the final book. I'm just setting it aside for a second. I want to make sure that the end papers are lined up correctly. So the bottom and the top, they both have their end papers go in the same direction. Believe me, I've screwed it up before, so I always double check. And then this close-up kind of shows you I've got 1/8 of an inch at the foredge. All of the edges, so the spine, top and bottom are flush. That's characteristic of a stab binding. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the template on the top cover. And that's going to show us exactly where the holes need to go so that this is lined up properly. And I'm using binder clips to fasten the top template to my cover. It's going to hold it in place, and you want to make sure it's well aligned and straight. And then once these are held together, it's time to use an awl. Now I'm using a thicker book board, so I do have a heavy duty awl in use. I'm going to go through each of these holes, and the goal here is to press just until you feel the large awl tip hit the self-healing mat. The reason for that is because once it hits the self-healing mat, I can turn it over just like this, and I can see the point on the end paper. Once I've got the point, I can just use the awl to further define that hole from this direction. So I'm going to go ahead and just repeat that process. And yes, if you're using a good quality book board, it can take a minute to get these holes through, but take your time. It's definitely worthwhile. Now, once I use the large awl to get them defined, I can go ahead and remove the template. And I just want to show you, this is what it looks like. Holes all created, and I flip it over. This is what they look like on the inside. And then I'm going to grab the light duty tapered awl and start to just press it through so that the holes are widened. Our large awl, or the heavy duty awl, it gave us a way to get through the board, but the tapered awl is really where you're able to open up the hole enough so that your needle can get through. So I'm just going to keep doing this. It takes a little bit, but it's totally worth it. And once I feel like I've got those holes big enough, I test it with my needle. Your needle should just fly right through like it did on the first one, but notice that second when it got stuck, I know I'm going to have to go back and just open that hole up a little bit more. Okay, so now with the front cover done, we're ready to mark the holes on our back cover. To do that, it's so much easier. You're just going to go ahead and lay the front cover on top of the back cover the same way it would be if the book was complete but without a text block in it, and then clip them together using your binder clips. Now the front cover becomes the guide to move the holes through the back cover. So go ahead and repeat the same process that we did before. First, you'll use the large awl to press through, and then once you get the holes through, you're going to go ahead and use a tapered awl to define them. So just go ahead, repeat the process with the back cover that we did with the front, and then it's time for the fun part, to sew the Japanese stab binding. Now to do this, we're actually working with a tortoise stitch pattern. The tortoise stitch pattern requires about 24 inches of thread for this size of a book. And before we get started, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with our language. According to this illustration, you can see that the 3 holes on the right are A, B, and C, and the 3 holes on the left are D, E, and F. Now that's important when I start to walk you through verbally what I'm doing when I'm sewing each of these stitches. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and just split the book into 2 halves. So we've got the top half here and the bottom half, and then you're going to move the needle through the first hole just like this. It's like station A. And you're going to leave a little bit of thread sticking out on the side between the 2 halves. And then take your needle and move it through station A of the front cover as well. Put the book together so it's nice and sturdy. And then you're going to move the thread around to the back and push it back through station A from the back of the book to the front of the book, just like this. So let's see that one more time. I want to show you what it looks like from the side. Okay, so here I am. I'm splitting the book into 2 different pieces. And then I'm going to go ahead and run the thread through station A of the coupon book first, just because it's easier. I can see things a little bit better. Leave about 1.5 to 2 inches of thread, like a little tail there. And then you rejoin the 2 halves of the coupon book. Careful not to pull the thread through. Then run the needle through station A of the front cover as well. And pull the thread until, there you go, it's nice and tight. And then move the needle around to the back, go through station A of the back cover, through the entire coupon book, and out station A of the front cover. Right? When you do that, it ties these pieces together, and now it's time to clamp. So once it's clamped, I'm going to go ahead and move the needle through station B from the front to the back, then wrap around the spine and back through station B again, pulling it nice and tight. Then from the back, I'm going to go into station A. Sorry, the video got a little off the screen there, but we're going back into A. And then we're going to move into station C from the top through to the bottom, wrap around the spine again, and back into station C. Now we flip the book over once it's nice and tight, and we're going to go back into station A from the back of the book to the front. And I had to use the book to kind of press the needle through, because once you get this much thread, it can be a little hard to get the needle to keep going through. And that's why I recommended the pliers at the beginning. It's totally natural if it's taking you a while to get the needle through. Just make sure that it's not so hard that you break a needle. That would mean you need to back up and open those holes up a little bit more. So here I'm just repeating those steps, but from a side view, so that you can get kind of like 2 different perspectives for this particular sewing pattern. Okay. Now again, we're going to go back into A, and watch, I'll set it down on the table and then just use it to force it through. Nice and easy. Okay, so once we come out of station A, we're going to move over into station D, and that's what connects these 2. Kind of see there's the line now. And then you're going to wrap around the spine and back into station D. And I'm just making sure to pull it nice and tight. There we go. And then from station D, we're going to come up through station E. Once you're out of E, you're going to wrap around the spine and go back through station E, just like this. So we wrapped around the spine, went back through station E, and now we're going to return into station D from the front to the back. That one was tough to pull through. And then I'm going to go into station F from the back to the front, wrap around the spine, and back through station F from the back to the front again. And there we go. I'm going to pull it nice and tight, and then return the needle back through station D from the front to the back. Okay, now once we get to the back, things are going to be a little bit different. We're actually going to return the needle into station A, but we have to pause halfway, open the book up to the halfway spot where we started, and then return station A at kind of an angle like that, so that it pops through the center of the book. And then we can take the needle off of the thread. I'm going to go ahead and use a clamp just to keep it open, and then I'm going to tie off a square knot. Now I'm going to use the scissors to just cut away all but about 3/4 of an inch, and then the book will close and you're done. Now I'm just inspecting it. I want to make sure everything is flush, all of the sides, which they are. I've got that 1/8 of an inch at the foredge, and I can easily flip through the pages of this book, which is just such a good feeling. Okay, congratulations if you made it this far. It's the fun part. You get to start decorating. So I put a bow on here, big red satin bow with white, and then of course I have a little tag on the front that says me and you. You can do whatever you want to do with these books. I mean, the artistic possibilities are endless, and you don't have to use it just for Valentine's Day. You can use it for any occasion that you can possibly think of. Just remember, it's a coupon book for couples, so incorporating some of the couples' tastes will go a long way. All right, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If possible, I can make a video for you in the future. So until next time, thank you for watching and take care.